Okay, so for now, I would like to go into the scope of studies for the chapter 3. So a few things you need to know for chapter 3. So if you remember, chapter 3 is one of the longest topic in your entire syllabus. So like for example, some of the topics are quite lengthy. Chapter 3 is the longest one under your microeconomics, which you learn in your year 10. Okay, so let me just go through that with you so that I can let you know what to focus on when it comes to your own revision. So there are 8 things, there are 8 subtopics that you need to look into when it comes to your chapter 3. Okay, there are 8 parts, or not 8 parts, 8 subtopics. Okay, I will make it into 2 parts. The first part focus on the 4 topics, or 4 subtopics, and the part 2 will focus on another 4 subtopics. Okay, let me tell you what to focus on in each particular of the subtopic over here. Okay, the first thing here, the first subtopic here is called money and banking. Few things that you need to know is, the first one, you need to know, let me just write it down. The first thing you need to know is characteristics of money. Characteristics of money, okay, and also functions of money. Okay, so characteristics and functions of money you must know. These two under the money. Okay, that's the first thing. Now the next one is banking. Okay, for banking, few things that I want you to remember is, the first one is the roles or the functions of the commercial banks. Commercial banks are the banks that we go to in our daily life, like Maybank, Public Bank, and all this. Okay, roles of commercial banks. And I want you to know what are the roles of central bank as well. So central bank is the one that control all the commercial banks. Okay, they also focus on monetary policy. Like for example, they control the money supply. They control the interest rate. Okay, so basically anything that's related to monetary policy is being controlled by the central bank. Okay, and also you need to know what are the roles of the stock exchange. Okay, so these 3 things I want you to focus on. It's not much. When you look into the notes, it's actually not a lot. Okay, for banking parts, I want you to look into these 3. It's all in the notes, and even for stock exchange, I put in the notes as well, because there was some times that questions related to stock exchange coming out. Okay, so therefore I have put this into the notes as well. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to know for the first part. Okay, then moving on to the next one is second subtopic is households. Okay, households. So what you need to know under the subtopic of households is, one thing I need you to know what are the motive or what are the influence. What could be the influence on spending? What could influence someone to spend? Influence on spending, influence on saving, and influence on borrowing. These 3 things that you may want to focus on when it comes to a subtopic of households. Okay, what are the determinants or what are the factors that cause someone to spend? What are the factors that cause someone to save more? And what are the factors or determinants that cause people to actually borrow more money? Okay, so this thing, what I want you to focus on is like this. Okay, so let's say you really don't have time to study, so there are few points that you can use it across all the 3 areas over here. Okay, like for example, first one, influence on spending. Okay, we can talk about wealth. Okay, when a person has a lot of wealth, a lot of financial assets, has a lot of money, okay, then chances are they will spend more. Okay, and if the person has a lot of wealth, then chances are they will save more as well in a different form of assets. And last one, when the person has a lot of wealth, right, then chances are they have more assets to be used as a collateral. Okay, so less risk for the banks or for the people to borrow them money. So when they have a lot of wealth, then chances are they will be able to borrow more money. Okay, because they can use all the wealth as part of the collateral assets. Okay, so wealth can be one of the influence. In case if you're lazy to study, here are some cheat sheet that you can use. Okay, second, you can talk about consumer confidence. So that means if let's say now consumers is very confident in the future economy, then chances are they will be able to spend more. Okay, they will save less. Okay, and probably they will borrow more as well. So consumer confidence could be one of the influence as well on spending, saving, and borrowing. Okay, and also interest rate. Interest rate can be another influence also. If interest rate is low, then people will spend more, they will save less, and they will borrow more because the cost of borrowing is lower. Okay, it's cheaper. Okay, so therefore, these are the three influences that you can use across all the three components over here. But if you have time, go and read the details. Just that in case you don't have time, you can't remember anything, at least these are some of things you can look into, you can remember. Okay, and also like availability of the saving scheme will also influence people to save, and availability of the credits and also availability of the borrowing can also influence people from borrowing as well. So these are some of the influence of factors that you can look into the notes, but at least these are some three factors that you can use across all the items over here. Okay, that's all for households. Moving on to the next subtopic over here is called workers. Okay, for the workers part, a little bit more things you need to focus on. So the first one that you want to focus on is for workers, right? We know that to hire workers, we have to pay them wage, okay, salary. Okay, so there are different kind of wage payments that you can give to workers. Okay, but apart from wage, right, we also have to focus on non-wage factors, like apart from motivating workers to work more for you, to be more productive for you. Okay, there are some other methods as well, like what are the non-wage factors that you can focus on to improve for the welfare of the workers. Okay, non-wage factors. Non-wage factors is something that I want you to focus on. Okay, and you might want to focus on demand and supply of workers. Okay, demand for workers means that, for example, today you are the boss, you want to hire more workers, then you have to demand for more workers. Supply of workers means that you are referring from your own perspective. You are seeing from your own perspective that you are now a worker and you want to join the labor force to get a job. So you supply yourself as a worker, you supply yourself as a labor to the labor force and hoping that people will hire you. Okay, so demand and supply of workers, those determinants I want you to look into as well, demand and supply of workers. Okay, and you know that different occupations will get you different incomes, people earn differently. So what can cause people to earn differently from one and the other? So wage differentials is something that you want to look into. Okay, and of course, when it comes to the labor market, right, one of the government intervention that's quite famous is minimum wage. Okay, so one government intervention in the worker market is minimum wage. So minimum wage, you must know how the minimum wage is the graph is being drawn, how the graph is being drawn, and what are the impacts. Okay, so minimum wage is something that you might want to look into. Okay, and then I want you to focus on this also. What could lead to the improvement of labor productivity? Causes of labor productivity or causes of improvement in labor productivity. That means how would you improve the labor productivity in the workforce? Okay, and then the last one is division of labor and specialization. And just one thing that I want you to remember is when you talk about labor productivity, the formula is you use the quantity of output that you produce, the output divided by number of labor. Okay, that's how we get to know the labor productivity. So that means we know that on average, how much each worker is producing. Okay, output per labor, output divided by the labor number of labor they are hired. Okay, so therefore I get to know on average how much each person is producing. Okay, so these are things that you need to focus on when you come across the subtopic of workers. Okay, just that few things that you might want to focus more is demand and supply of workers, minimum wage, this one improvement in labor productivity, and also division of labor. Okay, this part is a bit lengthy. Okay, no choice lor. This part is a bit more important. Okay, and the last one for the part 1 here, trade union, only few things. First one, I want you to focus on the functions of trade union. Second, what are the forms of trade union? And the last one is advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so for this one, only 3 things over here is also in your notes. For forms, this one, the forms of trade union usually come out in MCQ only. Okay, so you don't have to remember the exact definition. Usually it's being asked in MCQ. As long as you know which one refers to the term, you know the keywords, that's more than enough already. Okay, so only 3 items over here you need to know under trade unions. So these are basically everything about part 1. Okay, 4 subtopics over here, and these are things that you need to focus on. Okay, so next one, let me just clean the contents. Okay, so part 2 over here. So part 2, another 4 subtopics over here. So part 2 contents are more important than part 1. Okay, the first thing one you look under the topic on firms. Okay, so firms, right? Few things you need to know. Okay, first one you didn't know is about the sectors. I remember we have primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sectors. What are those? So at least you need to know some definitions or keywords of all these sectors. So sectors and the types of firms. We have sole trader, we have partnership, we have private limited company and public limited company. So for example, these are the types of firms that you need to know in terms of their definitions or their keywords, just in case if it comes out in your definition questions, but just a very short one only. Okay, don't focus too much on it. Then after that, you learn about small firms. When you learn about small firms, look into the characteristics and advantages and disadvantages. Okay. Characteristics, advantages, and disadvantages. Okay, then after that, you need to look into the types of growth. Okay, now types of growth here, you have internal growth and external growth. So type of growth, you need to know. Internal growth and external growth. Okay. Now, when we talk about external growth, right, it's talking about the mergers and takeovers and acquisitions. So when you talk about external growth, you need to know the types of mergers, okay? External growth, it comes together with the types of mergers. Like for example, you have horizontal merger, horizontal takeover, and then vertical form, backward form, and also lateral, okay, lateral form of merging. Okay, so there are different types of merger. Okay, and then moving on, the next one would be economy of scale. Economy of scale is very important. As I mentioned, you can use it in a lot of your answers. So economy of scale over here, as usual, you have your internal economy of scale, and also external, sorry, let me just change it. So you have your economy of scale and this economy of scale. And then for economy of scale, you have your internal and external. Okay, now one thing I want you to focus on is for firms, almost every part is quite important, but economy of scale is the most important one, which you will surely need it in your exam. Okay, this part you must really familiarize it very well. Okay, when you look into the economy of scale, when you look into the examples, no need to read all, choose 2 or 3 also, 2 or 3 to focus on, 2 or 3 to focus on, maximum 3. And here, this economy of scale, choose 2 to focus on as well. Okay, so for economy of scale, as long as the question is about large firm, then you can use it. Okay, this one, 100% coming out. Or you can say 100% will be used. 100% coming out, applicable. It's definitely applicable in your exam. Okay. So that's all for firms. Okay. Then we'll move on to production. Okay. So for production, first of all, when you talk about production, that means a firm would get to choose to decide whether they want to focus on labor intensive or capital intensive. Okay. So the first thing here is you need to know the methods of production, either labor or capital intensive. So you need to know their advantages and disadvantages. Okay, this is the first thing we need to know. Second, you just need to know some of the cost and the revenue. Now here I give you a cheat sheet. You just need to know all the formula that you need for your exam, and it's 100% coming out in MCQ. So here is my cheat sheet over here. Here's the interesting part. Okay, so cost and revenue, this part, put a star because is 100% coming out in your MCQ. Okay, so what are the cheat sheet here? First thing, I want you to remember this formula. We start from this formula, profits equals to total revenue minus total cost. Okay, and then put okay, this is the formula you need to know. First thing. Okay, now to calculate total revenue, I use the price of the product times the quantity that I sell, my sales. Okay, I use the price times the sales. That's how I get total revenue. Okay, and for total cost is the combination of the fixed cost plus the variable cost. Okay, fixed cost is fixed, variable cost varies with the level of outputs. Okay, fixed cost is a fixed cost, is a cost that's fixed regardless of how many outputs that you produce. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to know. Okay, and in terms of graph, although they don't usually ask, but just that you need to know. This is cost, this is quantity, okay, and this is fixed cost, this is variable cost. The more you produce, the higher the cost, and total up is your total cost. You can see both total cost and variable cost are parallel. Okay, so therefore, this is your fixed cost, this is your variable cost, and therefore you have your total cost. Okay. Okay, now, so this is the first formula you need to know. I have written everything over here. And therefore today, if I were to calculate on average, how much is the profit per unit or the average revenue? That means the revenue per unit of the product, or average cost. That means the cost per unit of a product. Then I just divided by the quantity. So to calculate average profit, that means per unit. Okay, I need average revenue and average cost. This is the second formula. average profit equals to average revenue minus average cost. Okay, how do I get average revenue and average cost? So very simple. To get this average revenue, I use total revenue from the above divided by quantity. Okay, same total cost. I use total cost divided by quantity. That's how I get average revenue and average cost, and I get average profit. Okay. So this is for this one, and this is for this one. Okay, and just one last formula for break even. Okay, for break even, very simple. So we know that, let me just write it over up here. Let me just write over here. Okay, so for break even is neither profit, neither loss. So that means that total revenue equals to my total cost, then both everything equals to 0. Okay, but there's one formula also in case if you have been given some different data. Okay, so another formula is BE break even equals to total fixed cost divided by the price per unit minus variable cost per unit. This is another formula in case you need. Okay, so price per unit minus variable cost per unit. So you know the contribution of each unit, okay, to your revenue. Okay, so therefore, here is another different formula. Total fixed cost divided price per unit minus variable cost per unit. And then, yeah. Okay. So yeah, so only these three main formulas over here. Okay, so therefore for production, these are the formulas that you need to know. Okay, so that's all. And just remember, all these formulas are for your multiple choice questions. Okay, and then moving on to the objective of firms. Now, objective of firms is just a very small part. What are the four objectives that you need to focus on is for profit maximization, growth, survival, and also social objective. These are the four objective of firms that we learn. Okay, so objective of firms is only, that's all. Okay, so this part is quite important, and you might want to highlight this as well. Objective for firms. Okay, only 4 objectives. You can choose to focus on 2 or 3. No need to focus all also can. Okay, that this is the part for objective of firms. The last one, when it comes to market structure, we have perfect competition and monopoly. Okay, so usually monopoly is the one that's more famous one. Okay, so what you need to focus on under here is you need to know their characteristics. You need to know the characteristics of the perfect competition and monopoly. Okay, and yeah, so that's the first thing you need to know. Characteristics of both. Okay, that's the first thing, characteristic of both you need to know. And then when you look into the monopoly, you might want to focus more on barriers to entry. The barriers to entry, why is that making so hard to enter into a monopoly market? And what are the advantages and disadvantages of a monopoly firms? Okay, so yeah. So barriers, advantages, and disadvantages under market structure. Okay, so this part here, I would say is quite important also, especially for the monopoly part. Okay, so that's all for your entire chapter 3. These are things that you need to focus on when you come to your own revision. Okay, hope it's helpful for you all.